Jack was hiking alone in a remote forest. He loved the quiet and the tall trees. There were no people around, and he felt at peace. He had been walking for hours when he suddenly felt something sharp on his ankle. He looked down and saw a snake slithering away. Jack panicked and took a few steps back. He saw two tiny marks on his leg. "I've been bitten by a snake," he thought, fear rising in his chest. He knew it was dangerous to get bitten in such a remote place. He remembered that some snakes are venomous, meaning their bite can be deadly. Jack quickly sat down and tried to calm himself. He thought about what to do. His phone had no signal, and he was hours away from the nearest help. He could either wait and hope someone would pass by, or he could try to walk back to the trailhead. The trailhead was far, but staying might be riskier. He decided to try walking back. He stood up, but his leg felt stiff. His heart raced as he took slow steps. His backpack felt heavy, but he pushed on. After walking for a while, he started to feel dizzy. He worried that the venom was spreading. His vision blurred, and he felt weaker with each step. He sat down again, breathing hard. His leg was swelling, and the pain grew. "What if I can't make it?" he thought. He felt fear grip him again. Hours passed, and Jack could no longer walk. He lay down on the ground. He started to lose hope. "No one will find me here," he whispered to himself. Just as he was about to give up, he heard footsteps nearby. A man with a backpack appeared. "Are you okay?" the man asked, looking concerned. Jack pointed at his leg and said, "Snake bite." The man quickly knelt down. "It's okay. I have a first aid kit. Let me see the bite," he said calmly. The man examined Jack's leg carefully. He took out a bandage and wrapped it around the bite. "You need to stay calm," he told Jack in a gentle voice. Jack nodded, feeling slightly better. The man helped him to his feet. Together, they walked slowly back towards the trailhead. Jack leaned on the man. After some time, they reached the main trail. The man called for help using his satellite phone. An hour later, a rescue team arrived and took Jack away. At the hospital, the doctor gave Jack good news. "You were very lucky," he said. "It was a dry bite. The snake didn't inject any venom." Jack was shocked. He felt both relief and embarrassment. "So, I panicked for nothing?" he asked. The doctor nodded and smiled. "Yes, but it's good you were cautious." Jack thanked the man who saved him. He promised to be more careful in the future. He knew he'd never forget this day in the wilderness. Emily was working late in her office on the 12th floor. She was a corporate lawyer with many cases to handle. The office was mostly empty that evening. The building was quiet, and the only sound was the hum of computers. Emily decided to make coffee to keep herself awake. She headed to the kitchen and turned on the coffee machine. As she poured a cup, she smelled something odd. She ignored it at first and walked back to her desk. But then, she noticed a thick black smoke coming from the kitchen area. Emily panicked. She quickly grabbed her phone and called the emergency number. She told them about the smoke. They told her to stay calm and leave the building immediately. Emily rushed to the door, but smoke filled the hallway. It was thick, making it hard to see. She covered her nose with a cloth, hoping to protect herself from the smoke. She ran to the stairwell, but the smoke had already spread there too. She felt trapped. She thought of breaking a window for air, but breaking a window could be dangerous. Emily tried going down the stairs, but as she moved, she got lost in the thick smoke. She could not see where she was. She coughed and struggled to breathe. Her heart raced. She wondered if she would make it out. She thought about her family and her friends. She wished she could see them again. She wanted to survive. Emily decided to go back up the stairs, hoping to find a way out. She moved slowly, feeling along the wall to guide her. She was scared but tried to stay calm. Emily made it to the 14th floor. She found a small window. She pushed it open and felt the cold night air. The fresh air gave her some hope. She waved and yelled for help. She hoped someone outside would see her, but no one did. The street below was empty. The only light was from the street lamps. Emily heard the faint sound of sirens. Firefighters were coming. She hoped they would find her soon. The smoke was getting worse. She felt weaker and more tired. Suddenly, Emily saw a bright light through the smoke. It was a firefighter. He wore a heavy suit and had an oxygen mask on. He reached out to her and said he was there to help. Emily followed the firefighter. He led her down the stairs, holding her arm. They moved slowly and carefully. He kept talking to her, telling her to keep calm. Finally, they reached a safe area. Emily felt a wave of relief. She took deep breaths of fresh air. The firefighter asked if she was okay. She nodded, feeling grateful. After the fire was put out, Emily learned the fire started on the 11th floor. It was caused by the coffee machine she used. A wire in it had burned out. Emily was shocked. She had been so close to the source of the fire. She realized how lucky she was to escape. She thanked the firefighters for saving her life. Emily knew she would never forget this night. It changed how she thought about safety. From now on, she would always be careful and take no risks at work or home. Henry was an experienced ice fisher. He often went to the same frozen lake each winter. On a cold morning, he felt confident as he set up his gear. He wore his warm jacket, thick gloves, and sturdy boots. The ice seemed solid, so he didn't worry. Henry started drilling a hole in the ice. After a few minutes, he was ready to fish. He dropped his line into the icy water and waited. It was calm, and the air was very quiet. He waited for hours, watching the tip of his fishing rod. The fish weren't biting that day, but Henry was patient. He loved the peace. As the day went on, clouds covered the sky. The wind picked up, making him shiver. He decided to try one more spot before heading home. Henry packed up his things and moved to a new area of the lake. He began drilling a new hole, but this time, something felt different. The ice below him made a strange cracking sound. He stopped and listened. Before he could react, the ice broke and Henry fell through. He plunged into the freezing water, his body shocked by the cold. He struggled to keep his head above the surface. He couldn't believe it. Fear filled his mind as he looked around. The icy water made it hard to move. He saw the hole he had fallen through, but it seemed far away. His fingers felt numb as he tried to swim back. The cold water made him tired quickly. He knew he had to get out fast, or he would freeze. The edges of the ice were slippery. Every time he tried to pull himself up, his hands slipped. Henry's energy was fading as the cold set in. He had to decide. Should he keep trying to reach the hole, or break new ice and make a path? He thought about it for a moment. Henry took a deep breath and chose to break the ice. He hit it with his fist again and again, pushing forward with all his might. His knuckles hurt, but he kept going. He made a small gap and pushed himself through. It was slow and painful, but he didn't stop. He knew stopping meant giving up. With one final push, Henry broke through the surface and pulled himself up. He gasped for air. He lay on the ice, breathing heavily. His clothes were wet and heavy, but he felt relief. He knew he had almost not made it out. Henry looked around. His vision was blurry from exhaustion. He spotted something in the distance, a small ice fishing shelter. He crawled toward it slowly, his body aching. He reached the shelter, feeling a mix of frustration and gratitude. It had been there all along. Henry sat inside the shelter, warming his hands. Someone had left a small heater and blanket. He felt lucky to be alive. He thought about how close he had been to the shelter earlier. If he had noticed it, he could have avoided the dangerous fall. He promised himself to be more careful and aware next time. He would not take the ice for granted again. He learned an important lesson that day. Emma, a single mother, was reading a book in her bed. The night was quiet. Her child, Lucy, was already asleep. Emma felt at ease as she turned the page. Suddenly, she heard a noise from the living room. She froze. It was late, and nobody else should be inside. Her heart began to pound quickly. She put her book down. Emma tried to listen carefully. The noise became louder. It sounded like someone was trying to open a window. Fear gripped her. She slowly stood up, trembling. She thought about calling the police, but was unsure. She didn't want to make noise. Her phone was on the other side of the room. Emma felt trapped in her own home. She tiptoed to the door of her bedroom. Her hands were shaking. Should she hide or confront the intruder? Her mind raced with thoughts. She took a deep breath. "Stay calm, Emma," she whispered to herself. She decided to hide Lucy first. She carefully opened Lucy's door, picked her up, and carried her to the closet. Lucy was still asleep. Emma gently closed the closet door. She hoped the noise wouldn't wake her. She returned to the bedroom. The noise was now closer. She felt panic rise. Emma tried to remember where the keys were. If she needed to escape, she didn't want to waste time. The footsteps sounded heavy. Her body stiffened with fear. Emma moved back to her bed. She felt so helpless. She looked around for something to defend herself. There was nothing but pillows and books. She felt her hands sweat. Emma knew she couldn't face the intruder empty-handed. She saw the alarm switch by the bed. It was the only thing that could help. She just had to reach it in time. The doorknob turned slowly. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She tried to stay calm. The door opened, and a shadow entered the room. Emma's heart nearly stopped. She forced herself to press the alarm button. A loud siren filled the house. The intruder flinched and stepped back. Emma shouted, "Leave, or I will call the police!" The figure stood still for a moment. Then it stumbled back. The person seemed confused. Emma didn't lower her voice. "Get out now!" she screamed, sounding braver than she felt. The person turned and ran out of the room. Emma listened to the footsteps fading away. The front door slammed. Emma stayed still, shaking from head to toe. She couldn't believe what had just happened. Slowly, she crept to Lucy's closet and opened it. Lucy was still asleep, safe. Emma breathed out in relief. Emma hugged Lucy tightly. She called the police and reported what had happened. They arrived quickly and searched the house. "The intruder is gone," an officer confirmed. The police told Emma they would patrol the area for the rest of the night. Emma nodded, feeling exhausted. As she spoke to them, she realized something strange. The intruder hadn't tried to take anything. It seemed like he was just lost. Emma was confused, but too tired to think clearly. She thanked the officers and locked the door. The next morning, Emma heard a knock on the door. It was her neighbor. He looked worried. "I am so sorry," he said. "My son came home drunk last night. He went to the wrong house." Emma's mouth opened in shock. The intruder had been a teenager? It wasn't a robber or dangerous criminal. Emma felt her fear change into relief and then to sympathy. "I hope he's okay," she replied softly. The neighbor looked ashamed. "He's fine. He's just very sorry." Emma nodded, still feeling shaken, but thankful that the scare ended safely.